Hi there. In a world where nothing is certain, that means anything is possible, right? If you want to fulfill your dreams and desires, you are in the right place. You absolutely can have a life of happiness. Everyone deserves an abundance of love, laughter, success, health, and wealth. I'm Tara Chadzakis, and you're listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. The show that brings you meditation, mindset, and motivation. So start by giving yourself permission to be awesome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Happy, Inspired, Motivated. Today, I'm joined by Claudia Monacelli, I think I pronounced that right, who is an intuitive and a psychic. But before we get into the episode, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of the Law of Attraction coaching that I have just released and that is getting started right now. If you are wanting to create a different reality, one filled with love, joy, laughter, and abundance, make sure you get on this program with me. It's going to be 8 weeks of you and I working together to make sure that you're in the right mindset, the right biological, physical energy, as well as the emotional energy and the energy of your soul. Getting all that into alignment so that you can, within 8 weeks, shift your reality to one that is pure joy, love, and living the life of your dream that you really want to be living, and setting you up on the track to get going on that. So if you haven't done yet, make sure that you sign up for a free call or book a free call with me, just to make sure that it's exactly what you're looking for and to see how we can get you, see where you are right now and how we can get you to where you want to be going. So with that said, I will leave a note in the show notes for you so you can click over and book a call with me if you haven't. Remember, the first 5 people are getting a discount on this, so make sure you get in quick. Right, so back to Claudia. She is a really interesting lady. She's lived all over the world, and she is partly Italian, I guess, and also American. So she's quite an interesting lady. And her research includes sociolinguistics, but also she works a lot on psychology, and she uses her psychic energy and her psychic talents and skills to help people connect in a medium energy with people who have passed to the other side. So this was a really interesting interview, one that I haven't done before. So I hope you're going to enjoy it. Well, I know you're going to enjoy it, and I hope you get lots of great insight out of it too. So hi, Claudia, and welcome to Happy, Inspired, Motivated. How are you today?
I'm fine, Tara. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show.
I'm honored. And you're in Rome today. That's where you're based, isn't it?
Yes, that's where I'm based. To say the truth, I move back and forth from Rome to New York, But when COVID broke out, then I, had to just stay put for a little while. But I'll be traveling again this year, back and forth. We've gone over the rough mountains.
Yeah, we have. Yeah. So you spent most of COVID, I guess, in Italy then.
Yeah, in Italy. Yes. And my business is basically in the United States. I'm a university professor in Rome, though, and have a business in the United States.
Yeah. Oh, that's a combination. So how do you work that then? How do you?
Well, that's a loaded question. Well, it started, let's say that when you get into the university system in any place of the world, really, it's considered to be a functional hierarchy. The full professors, associate professors, and so on. Just like the army, really. You have the generals, and the hierarchy serves a purpose. However, I realized very early on in the university career that it was a patriarchal hierarchy. And no matter what, my credentials were solid, my publishing was solid. I far outweighed many of my male counterparts. There were days when I started screaming, yelling, angrily, charging into rooms and telling everybody, how could you do that? And so I thought, well, it's about time for me to do something else. And so I took a step back
Yeah.
and stopped screaming at everyone and and thought to myself, well, let me do something that I enjoy. And at the time, I come from a third generation. I'm a third generation psychic, and my dad was also a psychic, and my mom was. My mom was a card reader. So I started just for the fun of it, and I mean that very sincerely, for the fun of it. I started a YouTube channel with an online persona with a different name, Christelle Martinette, because I thought to myself, God forbid my students would find me. You know? and, and this was in 2014. And one thing led to another, and I was having so much fun. The public was growing and growing and growing. And I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to open a business. I'm going to branch out, use my hypnotherapist skills, because I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and started creating this more than a persona, but a branch of services. And my strong point is mediumship. And what happened then was that I started thinking, well, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could phase out of this hierarchical position as a professor that I love? You know, one of the most important things in my look, Tara, you can cut me off when I'm speaking too much.
It's all right. No, you carry on. It's fascinating.
Because one of the most interesting things for me is doing research. When I write, when I do research, I'm a social linguist. And so I work on a very minute, delicate level of analysis of language in journalese English, anything written, anything spoken. And that I loved. But, you know, it didn't compensate for the idea of not having, and I will say this publicly, you're recording,
I am.
Not having the power to affect change to a certain extent, because when you're in a university, you affect young people's lives. Yes. And you're part of the curriculum planning phase. You're part of how of the process that tells the future what they should be studying in order to do that. Okay. Yeah. So that's when I started to research power in language. And that is still, I'm researching power in language. And the idea of power has trickled down in all of my books. And one recently, I think it was 2 years ago, I went to my publisher, because all of my publications so far are academic, were academic because they're changing. But I made a book proposal called Women of Power. Women of Power in the sense of women not having power, being the president, but women having power so they can affect change, and they can literally affect how a series of events occur. Yeah. Then I thought, and the publisher was thrilled. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, you write me a chapter, because you usually have to write a chapter. And I thought to myself, oh no, I can't write another academic book. I want people to read this. So I decided
I'll read to read it. It's a good idea, that.
Not necessarily make money, because in the publishing industry today, you make money out of a book if there's so much else involved. Okay, so I put out a couple of feelers, got in touch with a couple of language consultants, literary consultants, and I started working with a woman. So Women of Power and all of that, because my idea was to talk about how women are portrayed in the media today in the United States. For example, there was a TV series called Scandal, and it was directed by Shona Grimes. And the idea there was, the main character was, I can't remember her name, but the main protagonist was fashioned after a true fixer in Washington, D.C. Okay. And Judy Smith, I think her name. I remember her name, but I don't remember. And the idea is that how television or movies or newspapers have a reciprocal effect on women. we look to the media fashions itself after us. And
Yeah.
so that was fascinating. Of course, I still did my very delicate analysis, micro-linguistic analysis, looking at the pronouns and all of that. I went to this American literary consultant. She said, maybe we could ditch that academic stuff. and so I said, oh. And so today the book is in a proposal and it's in a publisher's hands. And it ended up being, and I brought a picture for you. It ended up being Live Like You Have Superpowers.
The magic of, pleasure.
The magic pleasure seeking.
Okay.
And so, there's a far cry from that. So here, the notion, I based it on archetypes, the queen, the goddess, the queen that has a certain aristocracy, and she does not need to work. She has a following. The queen, I'm sorry, that was the goddess. The queen is a businesswoman. She manages everything. And the virgin is a creative soul, and so on and so forth. And then there are the four faces of fear. And one of them is the femme fatale. And it goes on and on. And so that it turned itself into a project that I'm happy with, but there were so many changes to be made. Every once in a while, this friend, now she's become my friend, says to me, look, on paragraph, you just turn the corner and you become a professor again.
It's very hard though, isn't it? To move away from that. You've done so much academic work. Your style is like that.
Yeah, that's true. But that was a challenge for me because the real challenge was to try to slip through the genres of, the journalistic and then, the high end. And one time, this is just an example to give you an example, because we didn't see eye to eye at one point. I wrote in the Goddess chapter 2, a woman hypothetically was invited to a party, and the friend told her she had to come masqueraded as a goddess. And that put her in a moment of crisis because she thought, well, how can I, dress up as a goddess?
Yeah.
And so I added the line, you think of all of the protagonists of Hollywood films. And this friend said, let's change that word protagonist. I said, what? And she said, yeah, let's change it to main character. And I said, why? She said, well, a lot of people don't. What? I thought to myself, if they don't know that word, they shouldn't be buying books.
It's true. You have to speak to the person that's reading it, don't you? So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the readers of your book. But it's also interesting the challenge that you write a book so it becomes interactive. A person wants a takeaway. What is this book going to give me? And so that was a real challenge. And I even went so far as creating a game, a superpowers game. Claim your superpowers. I'm still working on it. Yeah, I know it's tough, but this is a challenge that way. And so that took away, let's say that had taken me away from that anger, the anger of the environment in an academic world. And I would go back and do it all again. I would, because doing research is my thing. I love doing research. I love writing. And but I've changed the emphasis, and I've put a spin on, I need to have fun. If I don't have fun, I can't do this work. That's in my mind. If I'm having fun, I'll work 24 hours a day, but it has to bring me pleasure. And so that's what the basis of my book is on, based on pleasure, and instead of solving the problem of not being able to have power and, and I found.
Do you find that it is more male dominant? How can I say the word? In Italy than the US, as in the university structure?
Well, there's an expression in Italian, tutto il mondo è paese. All countries are the same little town, you know.
Yeah.
And let's say from this perspective, from Rome looking across the pond, I look, oh my God, the grass looks really greener there. I go to New York, I look across this pond and I'm thinking, gee, boy, the wine really tasted better there. Or, you know, and these colleagues of mine in the academic world work 6 days a week, you know, and even though I, you know, and my colleagues in the United States would say, come on, we go to Italy on vacation, surely. Of course, we make 3 much as you make in a year. But the idea is really not being after the economic motivation, because that won't get you anywhere. It is the pleasure of being able to work in an environment where I go out of my house on a 10-minute walk, I'm at the Coliseum, you know, and that's, there's a lot to be said about that. And if I get hungry, I sit down and I know I won't get a bad meal. It's unfortunate that we can't be every place in at the same time.
I agree, definitely. Yeah, a few days here, a few days there would be perfect, wouldn't it?
It sure would be. And I'm sure you have had the same experience, since you mentioned you lived in Greece for a number of years. Do you ever think of, wow, maybe I could go back and live there again?
No, not at all. So I was there 12 years and it was great when I was there, but I was ready to come home to the UK. You know, I think you get to a point where you need to be somewhere else. That could be, you know, for you, that could be going back to the US. It could be somewhere else. You never know. But you get like a calling, don't you? I do go back to Greece for holidays. I do, and I love the people and I speak the language, so it's
good
great
for
to
you.
come back. But I enjoy living in the UK, so I'm not planning on moving back to Greece anytime soon.
Never say never, they say.
Well, no, that is true. Yeah, you never know what's going to happen, but at the moment, I'm happy here. So
but there's another thing that COVID has brought up, and I'm thankful for. Let's say that now we're doing this more, you know, on behind a television screen, a computer screen.
It makes life easy, doesn't it?
It makes life easy, and in many ways, but it's sad in many ways. You know, I dance Argentine tango, and it was terrible for a year and a half. And when it finally opened up, we had to wear masks, and so we had to keep our partner. We could not exchange partners. And the essence of Argentine tango is that it's a dance between strangers, literally. And if you go in with a partner, you dance the first 3 tangos together, and then you dance with others, you know. And so that changed. That definitely changed. But still, you know, we're talking now at a time when things have opened up mostly, almost everywhere. I'll be dancing Thursday night.
Awesome. That sounds great.
First in public.
Nice. Tell me a little bit more about your psychic work.
Yes.
Really interesting as well.
That too has taken like a winding river, a life of its own, because in teaching, when I started teaching way back when, I found it hard to give grades. I just couldn't do it. I didn't know how to give a grade to a student. And the same thing I felt when I started reading cards, because it started as card reading. I thought, how could what would they want to hear me say? I thought, and I was putting the emphasis on who was listening instead of my message. And so there was a growing development learning process. The curve was very slow, but very fast at the same time, because I put out videos weekly and I never went live. And so it did start as card readings, but then I thought, well, I would really like to work with soul therapy, past life regression. And that is one of the most fascinating things I do. And channeling then became more important because especially now with COVID and the fear that it has begun to run rapid everywhere. And that is the brunt of my work in the psychic, in my Christelle Martinette world.
So you're doing more channeling, is that what you mean?
I'm doing more channeling, and I'm doing it live at times. I pre-recorded at times, at least every week on a Saturday, 6 p.m. for the UK, 7 p.m. in Italy, usually live, or I'll get it out at that time. And that is a challenge as well, because a lot of people come on in the chat, and whereas here we are on a one-to-one basis speaking, when you have a chat, it distorts your attention and distracts you to the point of, okay, now who am I talking to? So that made me really learn how to concentrate more, and it served an interesting purpose to me, because it made my channeling work more fine-tuned. And but there's also the negative side. There's the opposite end of the spectrum, where when you work with a wide audience and you work with the public, even behind a screen, you accumulate a lot of negative energy. That's without a doubt. That happens in that field. And so I learned that the hard way. The third time I sprayed my ankle, I thought, wait a minute, there's something going on here. I bumped my head on the covers once, 2, 3 times in a day. I can't do that. I'm a healthy woman. What's going on here?
So are you channeling like the universe, or are you channeling through your mediumship?
I'm calling it mediumship. And for example, I'm thinking of what someone that there was a very loud voice for me to channel, Kurt Cobain, who was a singer of the 70s from the group Nirvana. Nirvana, who I didn't even know. I have to say, my ignorance, I didn't even know. But then I dreamt about the man, and 3 times, the third time I dreamt about him, I said, okay, that I will get it out, and then I found that he was an earthbound soul, which means that when souls, well, I'm giving you my take, on earthbound souls, all right? When a person passes and their soul leaves the body, and for a number of reasons, either because they are there was trauma in the death, as the type of death created trauma, or they were specifically rooted to their life on earth because of unfinished business, like for example, an argument with a loved one, or an argument with a family member that they did not heal and they didn't come full circle with, and they don't pass. And so they stay in this peri-spiritual space that is very disorienting for them, because they try to communicate with you as if you were living, and there's a barrier there. And you as a person have this energy leaking out, which weighs on you as well. And they really need to cross over. And let's say I have become specialized in that, because I get them in my sleep, and you ritualize their passing before I channel them. And so, it's sort of particular the type of work I do. And I'm talking about it now as if it's just second nature, which it is. It's just second nature.
Natural gift, isn't it?
Yes, it is second. But when I began doing it with the public, I had done it on my own family members, for me, and my family members. When you do it with the public, there's so much. We mediums get a bad name. There's a lot of criticism. People test you. They would pay me just to test me to see if I was any good, and it's interesting. I find that interesting. I find it fascinating, actually, the extent to which people would go,
I suppose people, it's something that they don't know. They don't have the gift themselves. So they're wanting to see if it's true. They obviously want it to be, otherwise they wouldn't be approaching you, but they're skeptical, aren't they?
Yeah, there's this The idea is, and this is, let's say, in 85% of the cases, people needing a sense of closure. My dad that passed away, and I wasn't there for him. I knew he had to tell me something, or
Yeah.
I'm about to invest in such a huge business. I need their blessing. I would like to adopt a child. I need their blessing. This kind
Yeah.
of, and at times it's cruel. At times it's difficult. Most of the time it works well. But for example, I'll say this easily on the air. There was a couple, and they came to me several times. And then finally, the last time they had come, they just came out with it. They from the woman's grandfather, she wanted a blessing from him because they were trying to have a child, and they were up, in their age. They were on in their years, let's say, and the soul, I don't remember if it was the grandfather, the father, had said, no, you will not have your own natural children. You will be adopting them, and that just didn't jive with them. And they literally, wrote to me, I'm sorry, you just seemed off. I thought, well, okay,
Yeah.
don't shoot me. I'm not the piano player.
Do you get so when you're channeling, are they speaking to you, or is it more of an interpretation?
Well, there's always an interpretation, because in the beginning I heard Swahili. I didn't know what it was. And I actually wrote it down. And
Wow.
I have to hear language. I have to see language. I have to listen. In my dreams, I hear language. And unless they give it to me in something I could take, read or understand, German, Russian, Portuguese, I can understand. So from that time, after about 7 or 8 years, then it started rolling into English. Every now and then they, start joking, because spirits are very, very humorous. They start with the German and a heavy German that I can't understand, but for me, it's voyance, clairvoyance. I hear it. And it has to be in a form of alphabetical language that I can understand. Yeah.
So are they speaking the language that they spoke, or are they just speaking different languages?
Well, many of my clients come from Asia. Let's say 60% of them are from Asia.
Okay.
And 40 from the United States. But even then, many of them are originated from languages that are not English. And the idea is that the spiritual world does not have a language per se.
Okay.
It doesn't have the Tower of Babel as a metaphor to live by. So literally, you can perceive the language of your native tongue. For example, let's say, Tara, you came to me, and you came in, your grandmother had passed away, and her name was Mary, and you wanted to talk to Mary. And Mary started talking to you, and she had asked you, said, look, Tara, I really do wish that you could talk to me and listen to me when I talk to you. And in that case, this happens very often. I suggest to everyone, because we're all psychic, we're all intuitive, and we all have a certain amount of gifts.
Yeah.
I suggest the first thing to try is what is called automatic writing. Now, you could find what that's all about in the internet, but what it is taking a pen, literally a pen to paper, and just start writing whatever comes out of your pen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you what one of my clients had said after a week of that. She said, look, it's all gibberish. 3 days of gibberish. I didn't know what was happening. And at one point I thought I was writing just to give it some form. I threw in a word every now and then. And then she said, after 4 or 5 days, I took the sheet of paper, just like my book. And she said, I moved it away, and I saw the keywords popping out of the page, and I understood what the message was. And it's an exercise, you have to try that. Yeah, you have to try that.
But
it's fascinating.
So if, for example, in the future, I passed over and I wanted to speak to my children, would I normally speak English then? Or would I have you found that the spirits are free to speak any language? Can they access any language?
have I have requested specifically, if they are to come in, it has to be in English, because
Okay.
I will be relaying the message in English. It will not be in Hindi, or it will not be in Urdu, or it will not be in Chinese, because that is something I can't. And linked to this is, now I'm understanding your question a bit more. There's different types of mediumship. Let's say there are 3 different types, but I'll talk about the first 2. The first is a deep trance mediumship. And what that means is that you close down completely. You're practically immobile in a chair, and you take over the sambiance and the language and the habits of the person being channeled.
Yeah.
The other, and that takes so much out of your energy. The other is a light trance mediumship, and that's what I do.
Okay.
Because it works for me, and it's easy. I am easy. And I'll tell you why it happens that way. Because you said, well, do you see that? Do you understand? You asked just 2 minutes ago, does the message come to you, or is it an interpretation of the message? As a professor, I teach conference interpreting with the earphones, simultaneous interpreting. You hear the message in one word in your ears, and you get it out. And so it is a form of interpreting. I will never be able to say exactly what they say. And so there is a bit of that in this type of work. So the light mediumship is listening, because you have to understand before you can say anything, and then giving it. And then when they're acting funny, or for example, they seem to start dancing and making fun of you, because they're joking. Spirits are they're humorous, and I speak in the third person. What they're doing is they're showing, for example, one of the people I was channeling, he was a Bollywood actor. He had taken his shirt off and was showing me his bare chest. And it was funny to me. And so I relayed that to the people. And he was very fit, but it was funny. And so there is a little bit of interpretation, of course, because I could never have, even if they were talking the exact same language. Well, probably better than I do. If you live with a person for 40 years, you'll never understand them anyway, even if you speak the same language.
Well, it's always interpretation, isn't it? Like you say, you just take from it what you need to take and what you understand. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Right.
I guess you grew up with, you said your parents were both psychics, so you grew up in this environment anyway.
Well, yes and no, because you have to think that at that period of time in Italy, when my mother lived in Italy, it was taboo to talk about that kind of thing. It was only after she died that we found cards all tucked in under the mattress behind the bookshelves, about 120 packs of cards. We were astonished. We couldn't, and she was always playing solitaire, this in our mind. Then we came to know that our grandmother and great grandmother, and we all that. And my father was a prisoner of war in India during the Second World War. He was taken prisoner and under the British. And when I was a little girl, when we moved to the States, he said to me, Claudia, I swear to you, at night after midnight, when everyone slept, we would have seances, linking our hands together on 3-legged tables, and the table would rise. And I was, and he would always tell us these stories. And it was true. I mean, they weren't stories, because he told us the same story in the years, and that's, and he used to do it. And he used to do it not only when he was a prisoner of war as well. And that probably the thing that would scare me today, that I have not really witnessed. I've witnessed poltergeists and shifting keys, shiny things, jewelry that is just thrown, on the floor, that I don't give it that definition as being shifted by something, but I know it is. I know it is. But I have never seen or witnessed an entire cupboard being shifted, or a chest of drawers being shifted. That I think would scare me to death. Yeah.
I mean, I have cards that archangel cards that I look at. I was actually looking at them today, funnily enough.
Good.
How crazy is that?
What kind of cards are they?
They're archangel cards.
Yeah, they're very
I was
popular.
doing my cards and I was asking my questions, and I got my cards out, and then I put them back in the box, and then I was like, no, I want something else. I'm asking for something else, and I don't know what I'm asking for, but I'm asking for something. So I got the cards out again, and I was shuffling them quite aggressively, and all of a sudden, this is the first time it's happened, one of the cards flew out onto the floor.
That was your answer.
And I was like, oh my God, all right.
That's the answer. That's the card, the important card.
I wasn't even asking anything relating to the card that came out, but it literally jumped onto the floor, this one card. And that's never happened before. And that's crazy that I'm speaking to you now today as well. That's like really weird.
But it's interesting because sometimes I have trouble shuffling cards, literally, because tarot cards are very big.
They are big, aren't they? Why are they so big?
I don't know. And so I have different ways of doing it. And so sometimes they all fall and you can't go looking at all of the meetings. But when things like that pop out, you know that they're important. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just that one card. And I was like, because I was like, oh, for goodness sake, and then it went, boom, straight to the floor. I was like, oh. All right. Okay. Thank you. I'm listening. And, not necessarily that it's spirits, but it's the universe. It's the energy
that's
drawn to me. That's like, Tara, you need to see this. This is what you read. So that was quite impressive today. I was like, okay, I'll take that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So if my listeners are wanting to get in touch with you and maybe work with you with your psychic abilities that you have and channeling, how can they find you? I know it's not Claudia. You said it's Christelle, isn't it?
Well, no, I have two websites. One is www.christellemartinette.com.
Okay.
And the other is www.claudiamonacelli.com. One is the author, and I have another hat. I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner. Movement, energy through movement, and awareness through movement. But there are two interesting websites. As she says, I did them. I made them.
Of course,
of course, they're beautiful. But my website on YouTube is my site on YouTube is Christelle Martinette, a.k.a. Claudia Monacelli. So that you can find.
And that's where you have your live videos and your recorded videos.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Claudia, for speaking to me today.
It was a
pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Yes.
Thank you for inviting me.
Very, very welcome. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, Tara. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Happy, Inspired, Motivated podcast. I'll be back next week bringing more meditation, mindset, and motivation for your happy and successful life. To find out more about our community, go to tarachatzakis.com/happy, inspired, motivated.